Katie, give us the latest on what happened in Greece this morning, really within the last hour or so.
Well, in the last hour or so, I've had one of those moments where I'm shouting at my computer screen and sort of slapping my forehead because, like you say, the euro just fell out of bed as soon as we saw the headline that said that they failed to reach an agreement and failed to form a government. But I'm very much struggling to see who's actually surprised by this. You know, all of the parties were very bitterly divided along the lines that they've been bitterly divided by since the election. So this is a bit of a strange reaction. Nonetheless, it's a big one and one that we can't ignore.
Right, and before we get into the ramifications of it, let's talk about exactly what happened. There's no government now in Parliament. What are the next steps?
The next steps is a fresh election, and the big concern for the markets is that, you know, there's the party that kind of performed extraordinarily well this time around, a kind of coalition of the far left that no one really saw coming. And they did very well in the elections the other day, and the concern is that they might do well again and actually, you know, be the biggest party when we have the next set of elections, whenever that is, June. And they are pretty firmly anti-bailout or anti-austerity particularly. And so if they chuck out the whole deal, then where does that leave us? That's the big concern.
Right, and we know, look, we know Greece is in very dire straits. We got the GDP report this morning. They're not doing well. The economy's in bad shape. The government's in bad shape. But really, the big fear in the market, and you're right, no one really expected that the Greeks were going to pull together some government. But the real fear in the markets, of course, is what we talked about yesterday. It's dominoes falling, right? If Greece drops out of the bailout, if they throw it out the window, if they fall out of the euro, the questions then become, well, who's next, right?
Well, exactly. I mean, you know, how many times have we had this conversation about Greece? You know, for the size of the economy, this is slightly ridiculous. But the concern is that it doesn't stop at Greece, obviously, that it spreads to other countries. There was a survey that SG, the French bank, did of its clients the other day, and that came out as saying that 74% of its clients thought that Greece would leave the euro. And, you know, of that 74%, a decent chunk thought there'd be more than one country this year. So that's the concern. It doesn't stop at Greece. The whole thing just unravels horribly, and that's what's gripping the markets at the moment.
You said more than one country this year.
Yep.
Wow, that would be bad, especially if one of those countries was, say, Spain. Although I don't think that's going to be
any of the others.
Right, but I wanted to bring up Spain because I want to know, what are Spanish bond yields doing in relation to all this? Because that really is another key thing that people have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, the bond yields for the countries that you'd expect, the kind of Portugals and Spains of the world, have been on the up. They've had a pretty grim week. But really what's been standing out more than anything is that yesterday we had record low yields for all the bits of Europe that are considered safer. So Norway, Sweden, Germany, Netherlands, Finland, you name it. And so these guys are borrowing money for basically nothing while the rest of Europe's having a horrible time. And it just underlines the kind of fault lines that we've got in the single currency project to start with. As you say, Greek GDP is collapsing, Germany is still growing. What is ECB supposed to do to tie this together? Nobody knows. This has always been the problem, and it's just coming into sharper and sharper relief.
Right, you're talking about bond yields. Here in the U.S. also, bond yields are ranging around record levels. That's something we're keeping an eye on.